Hey there, I'm Alan Matthews from Classical Guitar Shed, and in this video we'll be talking about the left hand and how to play with the appropriate amount of tension in your left hand so that it only gets as tired as it absolutely has to. It doesn't overwork, it doesn't underwork, so it gets buzzes. How do you get it so that you use exactly what's needed and no more? That's what we're going to talk about. If you enjoy this video, please subscribe to this channel, and then we can do it again. So first off, what is it that the left hand needs to do on the guitar? Whenever we're playing, most of the time, the point of the left hand, or the job of the left hand, is to press the string down behind a fret, right? This sounds obvious, but sometimes we just need to cover the bases here. So we just need to press it down hard enough to make it so that it doesn't buzz when we hit the fret. The fret catches it and we have that note. That is the point. Now sometimes, of course, when we're doing a hammer-on or a pull-off, then the left hand will do other things. We might have a harmonic or something. But most of the time, what we're talking about is just normal notes. We need to push down the string behind the fret, right? Well, this is what happens oftentimes when people are playing, especially if you haven't been playing for all that long or you haven't done this sort of work, then oftentimes what happens is that the left hand fingers go very high, so that when we press this fret, these other fingers go up like this. And when we're playing notes, then there can be, I'm exaggerating, but the fingers go very high. Well, this isn't necessary, but at the same time, it's an automatic thing that's happening, right? So it's not that you're trying to lift your fingers high, it's just that you're playing and your fingers are lifting up. They have a mind of their own and they're doing it. So then how do we train them to stay low? Ideally, we keep our fingers very low above the frets, above the strings, so that they don't have very far to travel to get to the next note. That's ideal, right? If we just look at efficiency of the motion, then that's what we want to keep them low. But they need to be trained to do that. Here's a way to think about it so that when you're practicing, then you can do it this way. So first off, make a light fist a few times and then release it. Bring your thumb behind your fingers, because this, if your thumb is out beyond your index finger, it's going to create a lot of tension in the hand. It's going to be hard to play. I know a lot of people, if you're playing down like this, then it kind of makes sense to do the whole thumb out to the side. But it's ideally, if your neck is up and if you're playing classical guitar, you want your thumb to stay behind the fingers if your neck is elevated. If you do that and your neck is not elevated, then you can get into weird wrist angles and it's a whole other issue. But if your neck is elevated, keep your fingers behind, or your thumb behind the fingers. Make a light fist a few times and then just release it. And this is a neutral position. You're neither extending your fingers or flexing them, right? So you're neither squeezing or straightening your fingers. It's just right in the middle. And so it can relax. Once you have that, put that around the guitar. Now, if you'll notice, oftentimes, as soon as you touch it, if you can imagine, your muscles have all these little bitty hands in there, just millions of little hands. They want to grip. And as soon as you think, I'm going to play a note, there's this getting ready thing that happens, that they start to grip. And so in this practice, just release all that and say, I'm not going to play any notes. I'm just holding my fingers above here. And so that way you can just get used to having your fingers in a neutral position above the strings, or either barely touching or just above the strings without doing anything, and then just feel your hand be calm in that spot. Now, typically, you'll be thinking, you'll do this for 1 second and then be like, okay, got it. And then all your muscles will squeeze back and they'll just be like this tonus. But instead, give it a second and actually let yourself sink into, what does it feel like to be here and not playing anything? Like, what does neutral truly feel like, right? What does it feel like for my hand to be touching the guitar, but for it not to be actively engaged and working? So then once you've done that, then we can look at, what does one finger need to do? Slowly press one finger down. I'm just doing this one. I'm going to do this in a big motion. Slowly press it down until it's pressing the fret. And so you can't really see me doing this because it's such a small motion, but I'm doing this index finger. Slowly press down until it's pressing the fret while keeping the other fingers on. And just don't even worry about playing with the right hand, because that's just going to distract things and make even more tension. But if you were, then what you would hear would be that as you press it down, there's a thump, and then as you get closer, there's a buzz, and then finally, with enough pressure, it becomes a solid note. And that's a good exercise in itself to find the right amount of tension. And I've written about that in other places in other videos, buzzing notes. But for here, the goal is to have your neutral position and then press the fret down as much as it needs to. And you can imagine just there being, I heard William Cannon-Geiser, the great guitarist, talk about it this way. If you can imagine like a pad of gel that you then poke your finger down through, and then whenever you release it, you just relax and it pushes it back up. And so that's what we're doing here. So you press it down, think about going through the fretboard, you're just pressing it in, and then whenever you go to relax it, don't lift the finger, but instead just stop pressing so that it just relaxes, and it will naturally, the tension of the string will push it back up, and then it can go another millionth of an inch past that if you'd like it to. So we have the squeeze press and then just releasing tension. So instead of pulling up on the fingers, we're actively releasing the fingers. We're emptying the fingers. Now at high speeds, it might be that this isn't always the case 100% of the time. There are situations where you will need to get your fingers out of the way very quickly because of the demands of the music. But this is for practice, and this is just to train the hands to do most of the time, is press and release instead of press and lift. So instead of pushing down and pulling back up, instead we're thinking of the finger can get heavy. You can feel of it. Think of it filling with molten lead or something, or mercury, and just getting really heavy. Boom. Pressing in and then just releasing all that pressure and just being light as a feather. Boom. So back and forth without the other fingers moving, and just go slow enough so that the other fingers don't engage. If you're having a finger, every time you press your middle finger, your pinky flies up into the air, then slow down. Slowing down is usually a good idea because you can have more awareness of what's going on. So this is the exercise, and you can just do this, and then once you get used to that, then you can start putting in some right hands, release the tension. And when you release the tension in between each one, you need to train your entire body mechanism to release all the tension. Tension's not a problem. Tension is necessary. Tension becomes a problem when it carries over from one issue to the next issue and starts building up. That's when tension is a problem. Each note requires tension. We require tension to sit up here. So instead of going fast and saying, I'm an intermediate player, and so I'm just going to go ahead and play this fast. No, just like be an advanced player and play it slowly. And so then one note, empty, and completely get back to that point where your hand is just absolutely still and isn't getting ready for the next note. Train in a true release in that spot, and then go to the next one, and then fully release that one before going to the next one. When you're playing fast, you'll need this muscle memory of how to release in between each note very quickly. Otherwise, that tension will build from one note to the next. And so this is how, over time, and it does take time because everything does, right? Especially this beast of an instrument that is the classical guitar. Then over time, you can train in these little micro rests of your hand so that you're releasing very quickly. And if you look at great players, in between the notes, there is a release going on. So they're playing very fast, but it isn't redlining. It isn't constantly building and building tension to where by the end of it they're just in knots. Instead, there is a release that goes on between each note, and we train that slowly because that's the only way that we can. Otherwise, we don't actually release all the way. We don't go all the way back down to zero. We might go down to 20% or down to 10%, but what we would like to do is to go down all the way to 0% and then spike back up. You can think of it as a a tube or a thermometer with a level of tension going up, and whenever you play a note or even think of playing a note, that thing rises. You think of playing it, it goes here, your tension does, and then you actually play and it spikes and then it starts going down again. Well, we want to train it to go all the way to the bottom and then up and then bottom. So we have tension, release, and that release is throughout your entire everything, your entire arm, your hand, and your experience of what that means will change over time as you gain more bodily awareness. All right, this is playing with less left hand tension, or actually getting an appropriate tension to the left hand and looking at left hand technique. So just to review, find a neutral position, put it on there, practice being at rest on the instrument without having all those little bitty hands clenching in your muscles, and then press through the string, and then instead of pulling up, just release the pressure and let everything go back down to a resting position. All right, have fun with this just a little bit each day for the next 50 years, and it'll be absolutely perfect. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Take care.